Welcome back to another segment of Veterans Did You Know? Hi, I'm Dave Eling. I'm the Director of the County Department of Veterans Affairs. And today I have with me my special guest is Jodi Clock from Clock Funeral Homes. And we're going to talk about a topic that a lot of people kind of avoid talking to, but veterans, I guarantee you, this may be shocking to you, but you're all going to die at some time. So what you do about that is very important, not only to yourself, but your family members. And Jodi's going to walk us through a little bit today and tell us some of the things that you need to be aware of and you need to apply to. So Jodi, thanks a lot for being on the show today. I really appreciate that.
Thanks for coming over today. I appreciate that too.
Yeah. And you know, Jodi, every day at the Vet Center, I have family members give us a call. Dad passed away, Mom passed away. We can't find the discharge paper, that thing that you need so they can get the flag and they can get the burial benefits or they're service connected. And then there's the mad scramble to try to get that, and the funeral's maybe a few days out. And you know, it's very important to them that they get recognized with the flag. And I know you as an agency sometimes just can't get those flags because there's a bunch of hoops we all have to drop through. So what are the things that you would suggest that families should do just to, you know, like open up with this, alleviate some of these things that you're confronted with also?
Well, that's a fabulous question, and I'm glad that you asked me that, and I could go on, and we don't have enough time for that. So I just want to back the bus up just a little bit, and what you were specifically talking about is for families to have their discharge papers or their DD-214s. And that's important, but that's one component of being prepared. So in terms of funeral planning, what somebody really needs to do is take some time out and really visit their funeral home of choice. And if they're not visiting their funeral home of choice, they need to sit down and put all their information together. And when I say information, I affectionately used to call that name, rank, and serial number. But you're going to put down your full first name, middle name, if you're a female, a maiden name. You know, all that biographical stuff that's going to be on your death certificate. And then you want to share with, you know, your friends or family a roadmap for them to follow. Do you want a burial? Do you want a cremation? If you're a veteran, you know, do you want military honors? We just love it when that happens. The veterans are happy to be here, and that's so moving and that is so poignant.
It's always an important point of a funeral, you bet.
And of course, that discharge paper, if you don't have it, we need to know so we can either go and try to gather up a copy of that, because with the government today, they just don't hand those flags out. So where before we could be very generous with them, if we don't have that paperwork and get that red tape completed, we can't have a flag. So between the Veterans Agency and Clocks and many of the other good funeral homes in town, you know, we all try to have one or two on hand so we can replace. If necessary, if the family can't find that paperwork, because as we were talking earlier, every veteran needs to have a flag.
Exactly, and they don't realize that the post office provides these flags, but they will not provide them without proof of military service, which is a discharge, and of course proof of death, which is a death certificate. And that's a burial shroud. That's a very important thing to have. That veteran served their country, and they deserve, they've earned that right to have that flag placed over the casket or folded if they're cremated by the remains. And then it's presented to families. It's a very moving part of any service and ceremony, and it's very distraught when they don't find that paperwork, and we say, well, you know, we can't get a flag. And again, between the funeral homes, the Vet Center, we've got extra flags that we will ensure that no veteran is buried from Muskegon County without having that flag, and it goes to the next kin. And that's another thing is the next of kin is the surviving spouse, and then it usually goes to the oldest child. And I don't know what funerals do sometimes, but I'll get people say, well, we want an extra flag because that person got one, this one, and they don't. The government will only provide one flag per veteran, and so the family needs to decide about that too. Who do you want that flag presented to? And these are things that anybody, whether you're a veteran or not, you shouldn't leave to your kids. I mean, that's not fair. I've had it done to me. That's not fair that you leave those important decisions to family. You have the obligation to sit down and do exactly what you said, is to put that stuff together. And nobody's saying you have to run down and pay for it all or whatever, but you need to have that roadmap so that this is how I want it to be. Because I've seen a lot of funerals just go crazy because the kids say, well, I don't know what you should do, and the arguments start, and that's the last thing you don't want. I don't have to tell you, you probably see it all the time, but that's not what it should be. So this is an important thing to to get it planned out. Just get it planned out, you know.
Well, you touched on something that I feel is very important, which is flag etiquette. And people need to know the flag etiquette. Just as you said, it goes to the spouse, and then it usually goes to the firstborn. Okay, now that's a touchy subject because in today's blended families,
Yep.
you really have to work out. And as a veteran, at least it's from the position that I sit in, and so do our other directors, we don't want to be a referee.
No, and that's not our place to do that.
And
No.
that is not the form, and you are correct.
Yeah.
And so, you know, all those things need to be ironed out. So when it gets to that part, nobody feels left out. Everybody's comfortable with it.
And there's no
because-
hard feelings, and that's the last place you want to argue and have
Oh,
hard feelings over
absolutely.
a flag. But that's, again, you're right, that's the things that you need to sit down with. And again, nobody likes to say, think about that, I want to think about the ball game or what's coming up. No, you should,
Yeah.
you're obligated to think about this, and you need to do
Yes.
that, so.
The other thing that people need to know that they're entitled to is their marker. Every person who's served is entitled to get a bronze marker.
Yeah.
And we see to it that all that paperwork is completed. The difference is the government will take care of that marker for them, but the family does have to take care to have that adhered to their marker or installed.
Well, that's another thing too, is the government provides either a bronze marker or a headstone, either one.
Yes.
And it used to be in the old days, and this changed recently, that you could, if you already had a family headstone
Correct.
at the gravesite, then you couldn't get a veteran's marker because the original intent of this marker from the government was no veteran will be buried in a grave without being recognized, an unmarked grave. So if there's already a family marker there, then you couldn't get that. Well, they've changed that now. So even though you have a family marker on a gravesite, you can also get a government marker, and it can be the brass one that can be adhered to the back, or it can be the stand-up or the flat granite. There's 3 or 4 different designs. And the federal government provides that free of charge, and now the county, because the millage we got passed, every county is obligated to make sure that that marker is placed at the grave of the veteran. So that if there's a cost
Good.
incurred, all the cemeteries will send us the bill, and we'll pay to have that done, is to have that placed. And it can be placed now at the foot of the grave. That was another big
That's new to
contention.
me.
It always had to be at the head of the grave, the veteran,
Right.
but now, if there's already a pre-marked grave with a family grave, it can be also placed at the foot of the grave now. And this is
That's
just
good to
recent. This is
know.
within the last 2 years that it came up and made this changed because of that, because of a lot of instances. So the marker is provided free of charge. The placement of that marker is provided and paid for. And you can have both. You can have a commercial headstone, and you
Correct.
can also have a veteran's headstone. And again, but you have to apply for that, and you need that discharge paper.
Need the
You need a
discharge
discharge
paper.
paper. You can be standing there in full battle gear with all your medals on
Back
or
to that
laying
red
there.
tape.
You better have that discharge, or you're not going to get it. So that's another benefit. And there is a monetary amount. There's a minuscule. It's $300 that the county also provides to the spouse of wartime veterans and the vet themselves. Wartime. They have been served at least one day during a war period, and they're eligible for up to a $300 county burial allowance. And the funeral homes have been tremendous. And they have the paperwork about applying for that. But if you're the spouse or your mom or dad is a spouse of a vet, make sure the funeral home knows that, because they may not ask if the female's there. Were you a vet, or was your mom a vet, or was your dad a
There have been a
vet?
lot of female vets coming through.
yes,
And in World War II, there were a lot of female vets.
That did a lot, exactly. This war we have right now, 15% of the fighting force is females. And so, we have a very big population. People don't think about that, but they do. So those are some of the things that the funeral home is really great about asking and making sure, but that all those things are put in place for you. So
The other thing that we were talking about before we got rolling here today
Yeah.
was Fort Custer National Cemetery. And that is, I don't know if you haven't been down to visit it, I encourage everyone on a nice day to go take a drive down to Battle Creek to Fort Custer. It is so moving just when you go into the gates. The grounds are so well kept, and to see that military service done right at a military cemetery. And the beauty of that is with any funeral, whether you're a veteran or not a veteran, funds are limited. Let's face it, funerals are expensive. If you choose to be buried in Fort Custer or in any national cemetery, you can really cut some of that cost, because you've already obviously got the grave, you've got the vault, all
Yeah.
of the things
The
are
only-
taken care of.
Yeah.
So really, it's just the funeral aspect, the services and that casket that you have to handle.
yeah, the only thing they don't do, they won't prepare the body. That's the
Correct.
funeral home, nor will they transport.
Correct.
But once you have the person there, then everything else is taken care of. Like you said, the plot is provided free of charge, and the spouse, again, of a wartime veteran, or any veteran, the spouse can also be buried at that cemetery
Yep.
in the same plot. So the plots are provided for you, the opening and closing of the grave, the vault, and they also have a mausoleum there, so if it's cremation, you
Yep.
want the remains to be placed there, again, that's there, and it's free. It doesn't cost you
It
anything.
is.
That's a pretty good cost, you know.
Well-
and my kids say, well, what do you want me way down in Battle Creek for? I said, come on, you don't even go see your grandma's grave. You're not going to come and see me. And it's a beautiful cemetery. It is gorgeous.
is.
The flags are always flying, and the wreaths are out there on Veterans Day and
They do.
Christmas time. It's gorgeous. It's just absolutely gorgeous down
Well,
there. So.
and we took advantage of that. My son's grandfather was a veteran, and that was important to him. And so that's where his resting place of choice was. And then my son's grandmother, ultimately, that's where she'll end up as
Yep.
well.
Yeah.
And what was just very moving is just to watch the military honors right there.
Yeah, at the graveside, yeah.
And that sends chills up your spine.
Yeah, it does to me too. Anytime you hear there's always that anticipation of the 21-gun salute, the weapon going off.
I still jump.
Or then the taps, and if that doesn't bring a tear to your eye, then boy, something's wrong with you. But that is a very moving
right.
part, and that veteran certainly has earned that by service to the country.
Yes.
And most families will tell you that was one of the nice parts of the funeral. That was tremendous respect. So I encourage you to do it's called the military rites, and the funeral homes can assist you in getting that set up. They make a couple telephone calls, and the vets are there, and it's a nice deal.